All right. So where are we? When we pick up on Matthew 27, we've gone from the Last Supper, all right, to Gethsemane, to Jesus being arrested, all right, to Jesus going on trial in front of essentially the Sanhedrin. I'd hate to call it the Sanhedrin because it wasn't like all of them, but a majority, maybe a quorum of the Sanhedrin was there. And Jesus, how does Jesus get convicted? What happens? Why does he have this guilty sentence pushed onto him at the end of the Jewish trial? Yeah. Did they prove that he did something wrong? Did they put forth the evidence? Did two or three agree on testimony? What? How did all this come about? And this is so important because I think we miss it a lot of times. Because if you think through the last week of the life of Christ, how many opportunities did he have to bust it out of town and go, see ya. I'm living through this thing, right? And he even calls it out. I mean, when Peter strikes off the guy's ear, what does he say? Don't you know? Don't you know what I could do? I can call down legions of angels if I wanted them, but I'm not going to do that. In Gethsemane, not my will, but yours be done, all right? He's sitting right there. He's got Judas at the Last Supper. He could bust him right there, all right, and they would have beat the snot out of him probably, all right? This is the guy that's going to betray me. Y'all take care of him. Done. Imagine Peter being told, this is the guy that's going to sell you out for 30 pieces of silver. That wouldn't have ended well for Judas. I'm just saying. I'm just guessing. I'm thinking Peter's not a small man, all right? Anybody that throws nets in the water for a living, he's got to be a little bit buff, all right? So one time after another, and then in this Jewish trial, when they cannot seem to get any type of conviction on him, they just go, throw up their hands and go, will you please just confess? Will you please just literally not even confess? What? Commit the crime right here in the middle of us so we can get rid of you? And he obliges. Why? Because he loved you. He loved you that much that he said, okay, I could walk away. I could remain silent if I wanted to. So when they asked him, are you the Messiah? He said, I am the Messiah. And then he should have scared him. I don't know if it scared him or not, but and you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of God and coming with great power. Again, that was a threat right there. All right? So they smack him, all this stuff. And again, Jesus is very much unlike me because they're going, who hit you? Who hit you? And I would have been Jesus just calling out names of people who actually hit him and taunting them at the same time. Come on, Bob, can't you hit any harder than that? All right? That would have been me. Jesus is much better than me. So, all right? So here we go in 27. When daybreak came. Now, that's important as far as the legality of the trial because they're going to reconvene at daybreak and make it legal, even though I've mentioned several of the illegalities in that paper. It lists several of those illegalities. But this makes it legal because you weren't allowed to hold a capital crime at night or after nightfall, all right? So that technically, daybreak came or morning became, and all the chief priests and the elders of the people, which generally made up the Sanhedrin, the 70-something, all right, plotted against Jesus to put him to death, okay? So they get back together in the morning and they go, okay, let's make sure we all know what we're going to do with this thing. This is how it's going to go down. So it's a Greek word that plotted is sun bulo. Boulomai is to plan. All right, it's sort of tied to the will of God. The boulomai is sort of a long-term plan. This was the overarching plan of God. All right, thelomai is more of the, what do you want on your hot fudge sundae? I want this, I want this, I want this. Let's plot out. We're going to have hot fudge sundaes. We need to buy this, buy this, buy this. You see the difference in these two words? Boulomai is sort of a long-term, agreed-upon plan, a plot, a strategy. Thelomai is, ooh, give me that. Ooh, give me that. Ooh, give me that. All right? See that? Okay. All right. So they're plotting against Jesus to put him to death. Okay? That's been the goal all along. All right? Now, they have one problem. What's the problem? Why don't they just put him to death? They can't. We're not sure about the details of this, but somewhere around, and what Josephus says is 40 years before the rebellion, 70 AD, 40 years earlier, that power was taken away from them in some capacity. All right? Now, they do stone Stephen to death, but they sell that as though this was just sort of in the heat of the moment, somebody started throwing rocks and it all ended. So it wasn't like they sentenced him to death and then went, okay, we will meet here and we will stone him to death, planned. It was more of a spontaneous thing. That's how they kind of sell it, okay? So, verse 2, after tying him up or binding him up, okay, they led him away and handed him over. Same word as betray right there, paradidomi, same word. They betrayed him over to Pilate, the governor, okay? Now, what do we know about Pilate? We know he started around 26, 27 AD, and he's going to serve for about 10 years, okay? We know very little about him, but other than he was ruthless, he was conniving, he would not hesitate 1 second to do great harm. Jesus talks about one story where that Pilate mixed the blood of the people with their sacrifices at one point. All right, this is a bad dude. All right, he was appointed by a man named Sejanus. Sejanus was sort of the emperor's right-hand man, and when the emperor decided, I want to go live on my island, my sort of Epstein Island, literally Epstein Island kind of a thing, Sejanus kind of took over in his stead. And Sejanus started appointing all of these people to different positions, one of them being Pilate, all right? When the emperor found out what Sejanus was doing, undermining all of the thing, somehow the sister of the emperor got word to him that, hey, you better get back off the island and get back engaged because Sejanus is doing all this horrible stuff. And so they come back in power, and most of Sejanus's appointees were killed along with Sejanus, all right? And the rest of them were warned, if we have one hint that you're doing something illegal or improper, you're dying too, okay? So remember that. His appointment, it becomes very important at the end of the story, all right? But imagine having like a 3-hour conversation with Jesus, and that's who you are for all of eternity and all of history, knows your name for a 3-hour conversation. Not even a 3-hour conversation, but 3 hours, all right? 3. Then Judas, his betrayer, seeing or beholding that he had been condemned, was full of remorse. Okay, you may have a different word, full of remorse. It's literally the word meta, change, metamorphosis, change, mellow. He changed his concern. So full of remorse is to do what? I was going to do this, now I'm remorseful because this happened. He changed what he was concerned about. And a lot of people have a lot of different theories on Judas, why he betrayed Jesus. Some say he was more zealot than he was disciple, and that he was trying to kind of provoke Jesus into becoming Messiah and overthrowing everybody. And then when he didn't do that he's like, oh no, what have I done? I've killed my rabbi in this moment. All right. So a lot of different theories, but he changed his concern. So whatever he was doing, he realized what he was trying to do was not working out, or he realized, I really screwed this up. So returned the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and elders. I've sinned by betraying innocent blood, he said. What is that to us, they said. See to it yourself. In other words, this is not my problem. That's your problem. If you feel guilty, that's on you. That's not on us, right? So he threw the silver into the sanctuary and departed. Then he went and hanged himself, all right? Now, Matthew is the only one that records this in the Gospels. Luke refers to it in Acts when they're replacing him. Luke very, very briefly says, and he had sort of killed himself and burst open. That's all it says, all right? But it's in that telling. Why is Matthew the only one that records this in the Gospels? Why do you think? What are some theories? I mean, if you want to get technical, I would say Luke was much more detail oriented, um, but it's a different writing. You got a Gentile writing to Gentiles here. You got a Jew man writing to a Jewish audience. Mark is Peter, so the details come fast and quick, and then they're out the door. And then John again is sort of why? Why is it so important to Matthew that the audience knows? Why does he record this whole conversation? I mean, was Matthew in on the conversation? How does he know what was said? Yeah, don't be careful with that because what you're doing is you're taking the price of a slave as recorded 1500 BC and you're applying that to first century AD. Okay, so I mean, you got a lot of difference there. So there's never anywhere in the Bible that makes that equation as if this was this. They are the same sort of dollar amounts. So in Exodus, it says, yeah, if you kill somebody's slave, you owe them 30 pieces of silver. And then you have Jesus being sold for 30 pieces of silver. But again, you got 1,500 years of difference here. Now, it is mentioned Zechariah, which was 500 years instead of 1,500. That's where it quotes here, they took 30 pieces of silver, the price of him, whose price was set by the Israelites, and they gave them for the potter's field as the Lord directed. Okay, I can work with that a whole lot more than I can work with 1,500 years and no connection being drawn. Okay, I'm just saying be careful with automatically just equating those two numbers, 30 pieces of silver, 30 pieces of silver. Oh, that's what that meant. Yeah, I wouldn't do that. That's a little bit of a stretch hermeneutically. Yeah, yeah. There you go. Okay, now that's one reason. That's one reason I think, because is it important to Matthew that we deal with fulfilled prophecy? Yes, because he's writing to a what? A Jewish audience, okay? So he's going to have this account. But why does he mention Judas hanging himself and all this? Anything beyond that? You know, maybe they were friends. Hold on. Could they have been friends? What have they been doing for the last 3 years? With who? Matthew and Judas. And Matthew essentially being the sole gospel writer of what we call the synoptics, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. All right? Luke isn't going to have this kind of connection with Judas. Mark, even if he got it, it would be through the eyes of Peter, who would probably be really resentful and petty. Matthew, to me, there's sort of a connection here of Matthew called out of the tax collector booth. I mean, they were both money men, but go deeper than that. There's a deeper connection there. What would Matthew have been accused of his whole life? I mean, they see this in you see this in the Chosen. What do all the disciples contend? How do they always look at Matthew? Like a tax collector. Once a tax collector, always. You're always sort of suspect. You're always one that turned on your people. You turned on your people. And what does Judas do to his rabbi? He turned on his rabbi. Not Roman yet. We're still Jewish. We haven't got to Rome yet. We have no idea. We have no idea how he got that conversation. Yeah, but my question is not what he said or what he did. It's why is he the only one that records this? And I just wonder if there was sort of a personal connection between Matthew and Judas that been walking together for 3 years. And I just want everybody to know what happened to Judas. As tragic as it was, and again, I see a connection between Matthew and the way he would have been treated as a tax collector and a traitor to his people. And now he has Judas, the guy he's been walking with, who is a traitor to his people. And I don't know, I'm just suggesting to you that there may be some sympathy there because he's the only one. He's the only one that records what happened, again, except for Luke in Acts. So, all right, so we get the rest of the story. I threw the piece into there, hanged himself. Chief priest took the silver. It's not lawful for us to put it into the temple treasury. Let me touch on this real quick. This idea of the temple treasury, it's the Greek word korban or the Aramaic word korban. And you remember this, when Jesus is talking to them about their traditions, he says, you put your traditions over the commands of God. The command of God is honor your father and mother. But you have this tradition that says to your parents who are in need, and you go, I would help you, Mom and Dad. I would honor you with my finances and give you the assistance you need, but I've already committed this to Korban, the temple treasury. And your tradition says if you commit it to the temple treasury, then you're off the hook as far as taking care of your parents. And Jesus goes, that's wrong. You're placing your tradition of Korban over the tradition or the commandment, honor your father and mother. Okay, I just wanted you to see that word. So anytime you see that, when that word Korban comes up, you know it's temple treasury. It's blood money. They conferred. They bought a potter's field so they could bury foreigners there. That's why it's called the blood field. And it fulfilled Jeremiah and Zechariah's prophecy. So there's a combination there. Okay? 11. Here we go. So we pick back up. The story was they conferred. They're going to hand him over. The plot is, all right, we got to get him killed. We have to get to Pilate, and we have to convince Pilate to kill him. Judas hangs himself over here. We come back to the storyline in 11. Now, Jesus stood before the governor. Question is this: are you the king of the Jews? All right? How serious of a question is this? Pilate, the governor, the prefect, who's been there for, I mean, if we're in 33, he's been there at least 6-7 years now. Is he really curious if Jesus is the king of the Jews? Who is the king of the Jews? No. Herod is, right? The king of the Jews, right? Caesar would never go, I'm the king of the Jews. No, I'm the emperor of the Roman Empire, all right? And Herod, we threw Herod a bone and said, you can be the king of these people, these Palestinians, all right, as they would have called him, all right? So when he asked Jesus, are you king of the Jews? What's he saying? Is he really curious? I'm just curious. Are you? Have we been mistaken all this time? We've called Herod this? Is Herod living in your palace? What's he trying to do? I think he's trying to kind of go, okay, nice man, tell me about you being king of the Jews. Tell me what you mean, what your people mean by this, all right? I don't think he's literally asking him, are you the king of the Jews? He's like, so what do you think about this king of the Jews thing? And is this really what you think of yourself? All right? He's got him on the couch right there, and he's like, tell me about your relationship with your mom, all right? All this stuff, all right? Are you king of the Jews? Because in his mind, he's going, this guy's insane. This guy's either insane or a traitor, treasonous, and let's just kind of put him on the couch. Jesus answered, you have said it, as you said, all right? Which is an affirmative answer. It's an affirmative answer, the exact same answer he gave to the Sanhedrin earlier in the night, okay? Which I think really messed with Pilate, all right? And while he was being accused by the chief priests and elders, he didn't answer. So Pilate asked him a question, are you king of the Jews? And he goes, well, you said it, not me. And the chief priests and elders then pick up on that and go, accusation, accusation, accusation. He's done this, he's done this, he's done this, and he's this. Now, Matthew doesn't record any of those accusations, neither do any of the gospel writers. They don't name any of them specifically. John is going to come back later on and go, he's trying to say we don't have to pay taxes. They're going to throw a couple of just miscellaneous things out there that they record. But Matthew doesn't record any of those things. But Jesus does what? Keep silent. Why? Is Pilate going to sentence him to death based on the evidence that the Sanhedrin are throwing out there? No. At the end of the day, what does Pilate say 3 times? No charge, no charge, no charge. I don't see anything wrong with him, okay? Now remember that, because at the end of this thing, what's Pilate going to do? I see no charge in him 3 times, but go crucify him. We're going to crucify him anyway, okay? Which is really scary, okay? But that tells you what kind of person Pilate was more than anything else, okay? Then Pilate said to him, don't you hear how much they are testifying against you? And this word testifying is kata marturos. Kata, always down or against, and marturos is to testify, witness. Martyr is someone who witnesses and they die because of this witness. This, yes, I am a Christian. Okay, kill him. All right. Do you see what the effect? We think of martyrdom as being killed. No, martyrdom is the profession that gets you killed. Y'all with me? Y'all with me? Okay. So don't think of martyrdom as being killed. Martyrdom is speaking the witness that gets you killed. All right? All right. Don't you hear what they're saying against you? They're testifying down against you, but he didn't answer him on even one charge. Why? Because he knows this is not, I don't need to say anything. I don't need to say anything to him at all. Now, John's gospel does have a little more of a conversation, all right? But it's sort of an intriguing, by no means says he answered the charges, all right? And this, what does this do? So that the governor was what? What do you have? No, not yet, not yet. The end of 14. So the governor was what? Greatly amazed, all right? Going, dang. If somebody was saying all this about me, I'd be fighting. I'd be like that. And he's like, it's palos thumazo, many amazements. It's like, holy cow, this guy's different, all right? And in some ways, Jesus kind of wins him over. There are legends out there that Pilate, after he leaves in 36, 37, that he does become a Christian. Do with that whatever you want. They're just legends, all right? We have the same legends about Barabbas as well, so nothing we can do with them, all right? You can always say something, baby doll. Yeah.
Something about the way he talked and everything he did made everybody go, that's not normal.
Yeah.
Like, he just talked and he just taught like every other rabbi, but it still wasn't normal. And I wrote next to this, I was like, they'd never seen somebody be silent with so much authority.
Yeah.
I feel like he just said, he never used superfluous words. Like, if he didn't need to talk, he didn't overreact.
Yeah.
Overreact, underreact. He just watched them like he was the one in charge, which he was. But they were like, we've never seen anybody act this way.
And when we talk about that term meekness, this idea of meekness, the Greek word pros, that power under control, there's something about someone that just sits there silently because he knows no matter what I say, it's not going to affect the situation, so I'm just going to sit here quietly, calmly, and if I need to say something, I will, and when I do say something, everyone will listen. Why? Because I've withheld all this. There is a power in that stoicism that people have, okay? All right, so he is greatly amazed, which I think endears Jesus and Pilate in some way. Hard to tell, though. All right, 15. At the festival. What festival are we talking about? Passover. Explain Passover to me. What happens at Passover? They do. They go on the 10th day of the first month. They go and they select the perfect lamb, spotless lamb. You really want to get this right, all right, especially if you're the first child, okay? You want to get this right because your life's on the line, okay? So get this right. They take him, they keep the lamb in the house for 5 days. So Jesus on the Monday is selected on triumphal entry day. This is the Messiah. On the Friday, he's going to be killed, all right? On the 14th day, you kill the animal, you take the blood of the animal, and you do what with it? on the door frame, all right, which creates what Exodus refers to as a distinguishing mark on all those inside the house. So inside the house, where the blood is on the door, you are safe from what? The angel of death or the angel of wrath, okay? So the blood covers you inside the house, inside the faith, if you want to go there, okay? And then what happens the next day? Do you just wake up and you're still in slavery? What happens the day after Passover, the first Passover? What happens to the children of Israel? They are set free, okay? So it's not just sit there and just sit in the house and, okay, tomorrow, let's go make bricks again. No, there's a freeing aspect to this, all right? If you want to make a comparison, in some ways, this is July the 4th. It's their Independence Day, all right? And God brings it about through all of this sacrifice. Now, is it a coincidence that Jesus is killed on Passover? No. Not even close, all right? But it's amazing to me how many people just almost miss this whole thing. That the blood creates a distinguishing mark that I no longer have the wrath of God on me, and I am set free from sin because of this. And I get to go into the promised land of rest, talking Hebrews now, okay? This Sabbath rest that is waiting for us. And so if you don't see this, I mean, I can't help you. I can't help you too much more. Okay, so at the festival, coincidence, right? The governor's custom, or in Matthew's version, it's more the governor was accustomed to doing this, okay? There's different variations in the Gospels of whether or not it was his custom, if it was a custom, if it was the Jewish people's customs, or something. There's some combination of we started doing this, and now we can't even remember who started this. If you guys asked for it, and we just agreed to it, or we thought it would be magnanimous of us to do it or something, but in some combination that we have this custom, all right? The custom was to release to the crowd a prisoner they wanted. At that time, they had a notorious prisoner. This would be, we use the phrase, a marked man. This is a marked man, all right? Trey's out there fighting the bad guys. He's looking for that notorious marked man, all right? The picture on the wall of the most wanted, that would be a marked man. He was a famous, notorious prisoner called Barabbas, all right? Now, some of your translations may have this note that his real name was probably, according to the early manuscripts, Jesus Barabbas. Now, Barabbas simply means this. Bar means what? Anyone? Son. Abbas means what? Son of the Father, which seems redundant. I mean, that just, yeah, you're the son of a father. Yes, I am. I think most of us guys in the room, we are sons and we have a father, whether we know him or not or anything, all right? Again, it's redundant. But his real name, according to the early manuscripts, was Jesus, son of the Father, okay? Jesus liked to refer to himself as what? Jesus, the Son of Man. So you have Jesus, son of a father, very generic term, and you have this idea of Jesus, son of man, who was called the Messiah. So you have generic versus the Messiah, the anointed one of God, all right? So these are the ones who are going to be up for this, all right? So when they gathered together, Pilate said to them, "Who is it you want me to release to you? Barabbas, Jesus Barabbas, or Jesus who is called the Messiah?" Which explains why they throw that who is called the Messiah. This Jesus or that Jesus, all right? Which one do you want? For they knew they had handed him over because of envy. He shouldn't get all these accolades. That's not fair, all right? We're going to take him down a peg or two, and we're actually going to kill him because he's getting all these accolades. People are following him, and that's not right. That's not fair, okay? Now, what has I always want to confuse Barnabas and Barabbas. All right, what has Barabbas done? Okay, according to the other Gospels, can anybody name anything? He was a murderer, and he was a rebel, insurrectionist, all these things. Okay, so if you were to ask a Jewish person, what is the worst crime you could possibly commit? What would they say? Murder, to take a life. Okay, everybody with me? All right. If you were to ask a Roman, what's the worst thing someone in your occupied territory could do? Insurrection. We don't care what you do. You can kill anybody you want to, but don't even think about rebelling against us. So if you take Barabbas, one who murdered in the course of an insurrection, according to Jewish law, he is the most heinous of criminals, and according to Roman law, he is the most heinous of criminals. And now you put him up against Jesus, the sinless one. Okay? Why does God do this? I love this little thing here, because what are the people going to do? We so don't want Jesus that we'll go for this guy. We will vote for this guy. We will yell out this guy's name. As horrible as he is, as the most horrible person on the planet according to Jewish and Roman law, we would rather have him than let Jesus go. Okay? Now, you got to be careful, because who's the crowd that they've assembled? Think about the timeline. Jesus is arrested in the middle of the night. He's tried in the middle of the night. At daybreak, they come together and go, okay, here's the plan. All right, let's go. By 9 o'clock, Jesus is on the cross. Now, by 9 o'clock, when you didn't know what was going on, did you just happen to run down to the Praetorian near the temple and go, hey, what's going on down there? No. I mean, you're still brushing your teeth. You're trying to get the kids to school. Who's this crowd? And why is this crowd all saying, crucify him, crucify him? We want Barabbas. We want the most heinous criminal of all time. Because I could see, if it was like some guy that got caught shoplifting or jaywalking that afternoon, it's like Jesus or Bob the jaywalker. If they go with Bob the jaywalker, I'm like, yeah, that's okay. I mean, he's close to Jesus, okay? But Jesus versus this guy, what's God doing in this moment? We've talked about this in John. God makes it evident who is on his side and who is not on his side. He makes it painfully clear. And again, he doesn't do it because he needs it be made painfully clear. It's we need to recognize it. So at the end of this day, or maybe 2 days later on Easter Sunday, the people can look back, the people 7 weeks later at Pentecost can be challenged by this story, and Peter be able to go, you guys literally chose the worst human being on the planet over Jesus. Not you picked this little guy in the middle. No, you, and it exposed them for who they were in that moment. All right? It made clear, it made evident to them. And what do? What did we do? We really did just choose the worst human being on the planet instead of Jesus. And it revealed their heart. And they said, what? What must we do? Well, what do we have to do? We'll do anything. Repent and be baptized. Repent and be baptized. Simple conversion. Okay? So, and I love this. Just the whole Barabbas story just hits home for me. Because imagine being the one person ever on the planet who knows exactly what it's like for Jesus to take your place. That third cross was Barabbas' cross. And Jesus just said, no, I'm going to die on your cross in your place. The one who knew no sin became sin so that we might become the righteousness of God. And Barabbas gets a full pardon. The worst criminal on the planet in their eyes gets a full pardon. And that's exactly what you have received because of what Christ did on the cross. Oh, of course we do. Of course we do. But we're getting there. We're going to get there. All right, 19, let's go. While he was sitting on the judge's bench, his wife sent word to him, Have nothing to do with this righteous man, for today I've suffered terribly in a dream because of him. Next verse. What does he respond with? What does Pilate respond with? We don't know. His wife just said, hey, I had a bad dream about this. Why would Matthew include that? I always wonder if Matthew was married. Yeah, should have listened to your wife, man. All right? I don't know. It's just odd that he throws things like this in there. All right? But this would be a very Jewish thing, the dreams, the Jewish history of dreams in the Old Testament. It would make sense. 20, the chief priests and elders, however, persuaded the crowd, and again I ask, who's in the crowd, to ask for Barabbas and to execute Jesus. The governor asked him, which of the two do you want me to release to you? Barabbas, they answered. Pilate asked them, what should I do then, or what might I do then with Jesus, who is called Messiah? They all answered, crucify him. Then he said, why? What has he done wrong? Imagine the judge. Should I let him go, or should I keep this guy? And what should I do with him? You should give him the death sentence. And the judge is like, okay, I'm confused here. What are we convicting him of? All right. Does any of this sound familiar at all? All right. Not at all. Right. I know. The more I read this week, I'm like, holy cow. We don't even know what the crime is. Okay. And that's what he's asking. And again, Luke and John both do the 3 times, I find no wrong, I find no wrong, I find no wrong. Okay, and essentially that's what he's saying right here. But they kept shouting, crucify him all the more. When Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere with whom? Give me more. Getting nowhere with who? The crowd. And who is in the crowd? Again, before 9 o'clock. I mean, Jesus is going to be crucified at 9 o'clock. He's been on trial all night long. Who's in this crowd? This is not, and some people go, you know what? 5 days earlier they were saying, hail, Rabbi, you are the Messiah. And 5 days later they're yelling, crucify him. Do you really think this is the same crowd that was on the Mount of Olives with the palm branches and putting their cloaks down and saying, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord? Nah, those people are literally like brushing their teeth and getting their kids off to school, and they're like, wait, what? What's going on? By 9 o'clock, Jesus crucified. It's not the same crowd. Don't let people do that. That's not good. It's horrible hermeneutics, all right? And it's just sensationalizing this.
Do you think they were the servants of the priests and the elders?
I don't know, but the only people who knew what was going on at this moment were the members of the Sanhedrin and the chief priests. And so whoever they knew, whoever their allies were, they needed to know. And again, what they do? They got up at daybreak. They made a plan. Was the part of the plan to plant people in the crowd? Well, if I was making the plan, it would be. Just me, all right? Especially if I know that he's going to go, hey, do you want this prisoner released or this prisoner released? Who do you want released? Let's make sure no one says Jesus. Let's line them up, all right? It's a plan. I mean, it's a plan. And again, it's not just their plan, it's God's ultimate plan that he allowed to come down, all right? Pilate saw he was getting nowhere, but that a riot was starting. This is crucial. Why? Because what happens if a riot starts on your watch? Okay, now, dial this back. How did Pilate get his job? Sejanus appointed him. Sejanus gets busted, executed, and everybody was warned, you screw up, and it's your head next. Now, Pilate has a choice. He seems to be endeared to Jesus, amazed at Jesus, and kind of is trying to get him off this whole time, thinking, what's he done wrong? I'll just flog him and just let him go. And the riot is about to start. I think it's in John's, I'm pretty sure it's John's. They said, if you release him, you are no friend of Caesar's. Now, what happens if he's accused by the Jewish higher-ups as, this guy betrayed you, Caesar? Now, if you're Pilate, you've got this itinerant preacher from up in the Galilee, are you going to stick up for him and kill off the riot? Are you going to stick up for him and keep this going and let the riot just take place and go, that's it, I'm standing for Jesus? Riot takes place, and what happens to you? You die. Or you just go, I'm washing my hands of this. All right? Keep going. All right? Right at the starting, he said, he took some water, washed his hands in front of the crowd, and said, I'm innocent of this man's blood. See to it yourself. Exactly what the chief priests and elders said to Judas. This is not my problem. I don't want anything to do with this. Again, what's he doing? What's Pilate doing? Saving himself. Right? Yeah, I would. I would have done it too. Right? 25. All the people answered, his blood be on us and on our children. Okay, this is still a very, very controversial statement, even to this day. All right? This is what's called a blood libel. All right? They are saying, we are liable for the blood of this man. Okay? Now, a lot of the anti-Semitism, a lot of the declarations of the Catholic Church throughout the years, a lot of just the anti-Jewish, we hate the Jews because they killed them, and they even said themselves, let his blood, let the blood of Jesus be on us. We're to blame for this. And so a lot of the Catholics over the years, over the last 1,000 years, have gone, okay, we will blame you. We will kick you out of England. We will kick you out of Spain. We will kick you out of everywhere we want to. And some even argue that this was part of Hitler's final solution to get rid of the Jewish people, was he incorporated this statement into some of his beliefs. And so it's a very, very controversial statement. Sarah Palin threw the words blood libel out about 11, 12, 13 years ago when she was being accused of, when there was a shooting of that congressperson in Arizona. I don't know if you had to be there, all right? And she said, they're trying to put a blood libel on me, blame me for the blood of these people who were shot in this thing. And when she said that, whoa, that just stirred up the whole debate all over again. It was in the Passion of the Christ. The actual words here are spoken in Aramaic in the Passion of the Christ, but the translation on the bottom does not include this type of incendiary language. All right, they asked Mel Gibson to take it out, and he said no, and they said, well, will you tone it down where it doesn't say we're to blame, his blood be on us? And he said, okay, I'll do that. But in Aramaic, it does actually have that. It's just the translation is a little tamer in that. So just know that that's a very, very touchy verse right there. All right? Then he released Barabbas. And just own that for a second. He released you. Barabbas was you in the story. All right? You've got to, if you never see yourself as Barabbas, if you always look at Barabbas as, well, he was a really bad guy, I'm not like him, you may need a mirror, because we are like him. And I think part of the reason Barabbas was chosen was God wanted you to know there's nothing you can do. There's nothing so bad that you can do that I won't release you from your sin on Passover because of my blood. You're a murderer, you're a thief, you're a rebel, you're an insurrectionist, you're whatever. I got you. I had Barabbas, didn't I? I got you. So if you, in your mind, you're just Bob the jaywalker, I got you too, Bob. And I think he uses that extreme for this dual purpose. I want you to see who you chose over me, and I want all of you that come later on that you can never say, you don't know what I've done. And I always like to tell people, well, you don't know what Barabbas did. Let me tell you about him. All right? That extreme is saying, God saying, I got you too. Okay? So he released Barabbas to them. But after having Jesus flogged, he handed him over to be crucified. Okay? Now, I'm going to understand it when he says having Jesus flogged is the next paragraph. Okay, everybody with me? So it's not he had him flogged, handed him over to be crucified, and then the soldiers did their thing with him. Okay, is that okay with everybody? That having Jesus flogged is defined in the next paragraph. And then he was handed over to be crucified. Is that okay? Everybody follow me on that? Okay. That's just a Jewish way of writing, so don't get weird with me. All right? So the governor's soldiers, the Roman soldiers, took Jesus into the headquarters, gathered the whole company. Okay? So it's not 2 or 3 guys that are doing this. The whole company around him. Stripped him of his clothes, dressed him in a scarlet military robe. Okay? Now this is called a klamus. A klamus. Think a Roman soldier. Okay? He's got his armor on. He's got the chest with the abs, the six-pack abs kind of thing, and the plated armor and all this stuff. And then he would have, when he's not in battle, he would have this pinned up, sort of draped red garment around him, almost like a cape. It would kind of throw back as a cape, or he could wrap him around him. So if you can look this up later at home, just type Roman soldier, and you'll see this red garment that's just draped around over one shoulder kind of thing, and it's sort of an outer garment. It's a blanket. He wraps up in it. It's a cape. It's something you would definitely take off when you go into battle. Is that okay with everybody? Okay? So this is what he's doing. Now, what color is it? It's not just red. It's scarlet. It's scarlet, okay? Now, if we get into Florida State and football colors and all that stuff, A&M is maroon. Florida State University is garnet, okay? And we're very picky about our garnet. Oh, don't give me your ugly blue and orange, all right? Ooh, what? We're blue and we're orange. No, we are garnet and gold, okay? This is scarlet, okay? Now, I'm emphasizing this for a reason, because we get this throughout Exodus when we're designing the tabernacle. Over and over and over and over, if you've read through Exodus, you get this little phrase, make it out of blue, purple, and scarlet thread. Everything is made of blue. Any embroidery, anything that's embroidered anywhere in the temple, the tabernacle, it's always blue, purple, and scarlet. Blue is the color for Israel. All right? In the corner of everyone's outer sort of garment, every Jewish man was to have a tassel of blue thread. It's called a tzitzit. All right? When the woman comes up who's bleeding and touches the hem of his garment or the corner of his garment, she touches this blue thread. And so the Israeli flag is blue and white because of this corner of their outer garment, this sort of prayer garment. They have this tassel on the end that's made of blue thread, okay? Purple stands for what? Royalty. And scarlet is the color of blood that would be shed. When Rahab, the prostitute, is told, stay in your house, very similar to Passover, Rahab, stay in the house, scarlet thread on the window, scarlet blood on the doorframe. You see how this bookends the whole wandering? Okay? It's exact same word as the color he's wearing on this day. And what was he asked to begin this? Are you the king, purple, of the Jews, blue, and they dressed him in scarlet. You see what they just did with that? This is the color of God coming to man, dwelling with man, redeeming humanity, redeeming me. So the Israeli king is dressed in scarlet. Isn't that cool? I mean, there's so much in here that just if you just read through it real fast, you just miss all these things. So don't ever do that. Read slow and call me if you need anything. All right? They twisted together a crown of thorns and put it on his head. I do this all the time. I don't know if it's good hermeneutics. It's probably not good hermeneutics, but what do you do with your sacrifice? Every time a sacrifice is made, you impute your sins onto the animal. How? You place your hands on the head. And in this moment, what do the Roman soldiers do? They take this crown of thorns and they do what? Place it on his head. Now, are they going, oh, I'm imputing my sins onto the King of the Jews? No. But it's the only time I ever see in Scripture anybody putting their hands on the head of Jesus. And in this symbolic way, he's about to be sacrificed. And this is exactly what they would do with the Passover lamb. They would place their hands on the head. And just, again, it's probably bad hermeneutics, but I'm going to keep saying it because you can't prove me wrong. Huh? All right. And they placed a reed in his right hand. Very similar to the language in 2 Samuel 7, when he becomes unrighteous, or when he comes into unrighteousness, he will receive the blows of man. So they take this reed in his right hand, and they knelt down before him and mocked him. Hail, King of the Jews! They spit on him, took the reed, and kept hitting him on the head. Again, 2 Samuel 7, right there. When they had mocked him and stripped him of the robe, put his clothes back on him, and led him away to be crucified. You see what we did with the Jewish writing style? They flogged him and then led him away to be crucified. Flogged him. Okay, here's what happened. And now we pick back up, and now they led him away to be crucified. Okay? Got it? Questions, comments, opinions, snide remarks? Nash is ready to go. You got a question, Nash? No? Yes. Yeah, theoretically. Yeah. Yeah, those weren't nice, polite thorns. Yeah, it was that. Someday I hope to go to Israel and see what kind of thorns we're talking about here. But from everything I've heard and everything I've read and understood, yeah, these were not playing around thorns. So. I would say portraying Jesus as a traitor by calling himself King of the Jews, I would say that was plan A. And when that didn't work, it was plan B of, we're going to tell Caesar. You're no friend of Caesar, which was like, I ain't dying for this guy. This is just my mourning. I'm not going to worry about this. I've crucified thousands of people. This one ain't going to be nothing different for me. So, and as much as he was endeared to Jesus, he wasn't going to die for that. So, yeah, they had him on both sides. They could get him on king, or they could get him on, you're no friend of Caesar. There's no indication that any of the disciples were there. So I would not want to say, well, the disciples were in the crowd. He would have received reports. He would have received reports from people who were there. Very likely Mary was there. Very likely somebody was there. Very likely, we're talking about, he's writing this 35, 40 years later. So think about those who converted to the faith, possibly even some of the Roman soldiers that were there, or someone that was observing all this. We just don't know. We don't know. So John was at the cross, but that's John telling us that John was at the cross, which is okay, but John has a vivid memory, so we'll just leave it at that. So, all right, other questions? Okay, we'll come back next week and we'll pick it up as he is leaving the Praetorian and being taken out to be crucified. Okay, good. Nash, you good? Any questions? All right, let's pray. Father, thank you so much for dying for us. Thank you for sending your Son. Thank you for the obedience of your Son, the love that you had for us. Father, we can't even begin to imagine what that is. We can't imagine why we possibly deserved any of this, why we deserved any of your mercy, any of your grace. Um, Father, I pray that you would remind us of that love and that mercy. Remind us of the price that was paid, the cost that was paid to bring about our salvation. And Father, may we live in a way that reflects the beauty of this moment, the beauty of your sacrifice, the beauty of you over and over and over and over again, defying your own will so that you could do the Father's will and save me. And I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.